All right, time flies. We are on to episode 7 of season 2 of the Micro Vlogcast. Wendy and Danny, welcome as usual. We're going to take a few episodes to understand this idea of scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions. You hear people talk about this, and it can feel really nebulous. So maybe let's start with scope 1. Can you help me understand what are scope 1 greenhouse gas emissions?
I'll even do all 3 kind of at once in terms of so the breakdown that I always use to explain everybody is it's determining where you burn the fuel. That's what matters, right? And who has control over that. So on a most basic level, scope 1 is fuel that you burn in a facility that you control, some aspect of control, right? And so natural gas, propane, gasoline, if you burn it on site, that's scope 1.
Gotcha.
Scope 2 is fuel that is burned off site, but you have control over its use. And so that would be like electricity or steam, where like you don't really have control over what's burned, but you can turn off the lights, right?
That's fair enough.
And I think the most interesting one is scope 3, which is the one that like you don't have control over, but you're responsible for. So that's a longer discussion, but I think like people commute to your office or you order something online, it has to get there because of an action you made.
Sure.
But you don't have control over what vehicle that is used to get it there. You don't have control over what, how fuel efficient it is. So you're responsible, but not necessarily controlling it.
That's a great overview. So what emissions do most companies report on? Kind of what's the standard right now?
Typically, companies report on scope 1 and 2. They're the most known, they're the easiest data to generate because it's most in their control and most widely available. Scope 3, because of all of the nuanced aspects of trying to obtain the information because it's not completely in their control, that becomes much more difficult. And so that is still, the concept has been out there for many years, but the actual gathering of the data and generating numbers around it is still emerging.
Gotcha. So most companies, well, not most, but the companies that are doing emissions reporting, it's usually they're starting with scope 1 and 2, and then after they get familiar with that, then they'll move into doing the scope 3 emissions.
Typically, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, there's your crash course on scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions.
And I said, look, Daniel Tiger gives him all the emotional skill sets needed to watch 4 hours of straight TV.